Hello, everyone. My name is Leona Herzog, and I'm in the Buehler Gallery today, and we're going to be talking about the work of Bonnie Marin. Bonnie had the opportunity to work with Dr. Renée Douville. We'll be conducting a conversation about the art and the science. Bonnie, can you tell us a bit about your art practice?
Sure. So I kind of categorize my art as a combination of pop and surrealism. Those are kind of big influences, for my work. And I do a variety of different mediums. I do sculpture, collage, bookwork, painting a little bit, but not really so much anymore. And a lot of my work explores gender issues, feminist issues, mental health issues. There's a lot of medical stuff in my work. So when I found about this program, that's why it was, really was attractive to me. And I do a lot of artist books. So I've kind of got a lot of different areas that I work in. And usually when I work on about 3 or 4 different projects at a time, which, seems a little bit, why would you do that? But, when I need a break from one thing, I go to the next, and it seems to keep me fresh.
Your work in this show is absolutely stunning. I've seen your work over the years, and I must say this is gorgeous, and I'm super excited for people to come back into the gallery to be able to see it. And maybe we can try to understand what inspired you. So Dr. Renée, I understand you're zooming in from your lab.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your area of research and what drew you to this initiative?
Sure. So my area of research is studying viruses that are found within human DNA and what happens when those viruses become expressed in diseases like cancer and neurological disease. So really what drew me to this program is a love for neuroscience and a love for art, which I do both of. And so when I saw Bonnie's work the first time, what really attracted me to it was her level of detail. So just like me as a scientist, I love detail. I love detail at the cellular and molecular level. And Bonnie's artwork is just filled with amazing tiny details that you have to be really observant to see all the things she's put in her artwork.
Mm. Oh, I absolutely agree with you. It's the type of work that you can come back and look at over and over again. That's one of the things I enjoy about it. So how did the collaboration between the two of you work? Were you actually able to get into the lab, or was most of it done via distance?
Well, yeah, I was able to go to her lab, which I think it was the coldest day of the year when I met her there. I remember it was like -40 with the wind chill, and it was just brutal. But the lab it was just so cool. Like the the freezers, one went down to what, -70, and the other one a -100 and something like that.
150.
Yeah, I know. Wow, that's really cool. And she showed me her experiments. And so fortunately, I was able to go there. And then, COVID hit, lockdown. We were able to meet up in person, I think, twice in the summer. So she was able to come to my studio. And I was able to go see her studio, look at her artwork. So that was really cool. And then it was like Skype. So probably I'd say at least once a month, we would be able to talk back and forth. So despite, COVID, luckily we had the means, and we were able to, spend a lot of time working on this together.
And texting a lot of pictures back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. I imagine that the imagery was very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bonnie, what aspect of Renée's work sparked for you to create the pieces that are in the show?
Well, there was two factors. One was the viruses. I just thought that whole aspect of, wow, that a virus can cause a disease that, you didn't think about, that's what caused it, just sort of the impact of studying the viruses and what they can do. And then COVID hit. So it was like, wow, if we're not just living in this, so that was one thing. And then just women in science, like, because it's the Douville lab. So that's Renée's lab. So she's the boss, right? So she's running it. And how, how hard it is for, well, just women in general in all sorts of careers, but, you know, in science, just sort of, I thought that was, you know, to run the lab and to be in charge, and, you know, how difficult it just is for women to get their foothold at something like that. So that, I thought, so yes, those are the two areas.
Yeah, women in science has actually turned out to be quite an important aspect of this show, with a number of artists that are participating, and I'm really, really pleased to see. So, Bonnie, how did you use the information in your work?
Well, so I'll give a few examples of the work. So in regards to viruses, for the work, there was, so the incident, for example, the piece, the incident, there was Cotillion, the dead, an incubation period. So those three collages. So those are works where, you know, there's a death element to it, but it sort of mirrors and talks, you know, how viruses may work. So those were the pieces in general. I don't want to give too much away, because I like people to look at the work and sort of, you know, get a hint about what I'm saying, but also bring themselves into it, their own experience, and have their interpretation of it. So those were, you know, a few examples of how dealing with the viruses. And then the women in science pieces, there was unsterilized incision and the invisible entomologist. So, you know, the sort of tongue-in-cheek unsterilized incision is like, well, a woman can't be a medical doctor or scientist because they're going to screw it up. You know, they're going to do something wrong. So that was, you know, kind of poking fun at that one. And then the invisible entomologist, the same thing. Well, a woman can't be a scientist, so she can do the work, but we're not gonna recognize what she's doing. So those are kind of examples of pieces that influence for the show. I guess the one that I've been getting a lot of feedback from that people really like is the universal beauty. And that sort of falls into the category of women in science. It's a portrait, and it's, you know, it's got that sort of the pose, a classical sort of looking pose you would do for a portrait. And it's got the flowers, so it's all beautiful because, you know, you should look a certain way for a portrait. But it's challenging because the skin's peeled away. And so it's beautiful, but it's just like, ooh, that can be off-putting. It's like this raw medical side to it. So again, that's sort of a piece where, you know, women in science, where they should be a certain way. They shouldn't be, you know, the perceptions, well, they can't be a scientist, and the stereotypes that might be put on them, but they can be. And, you know, and the brain is like some sort of world, you know, it's like, it's endless possibilities. So that was one where it's like, you know, a lot of times I'll make art that it's a little challenging to look at for a little subtle thing, but it's really beautiful at the same time. You know, I do a lot of work, like, you know, I might do in a series 100 pieces or more, but every once in a while one just hits, and it's just like I give myself a wow moment, and this is one of those pieces where I gave myself a wow moment. So,
wow, yeah, well, I felt wow as well. It really is a gorgeous piece, and it's even more beautiful when you see it in life. So, Renee, how do you feel about the pieces that Bonnie has produced?
Well, I love them, of course, first and foremost. I love her use of color, but one of the things that I love the most about her pieces, at least for this series, is the change in scale. So because things that to me are normally large organisms are small sometimes, and the microorganisms and the cells can be large, it really changes your sense of perspective. And I think it makes you reevaluate the power dynamics between different organisms like humans and viruses. And I also think that it speaks to the fact that sometimes we underestimate the smallest things in our world, and that they can actually be quite powerful. So I like how Bonnie has brought this to light.
I'm very curious, Renee, you have staff working in your lab, and I am wondering how your staff has responded to this artwork, and if they are doing things differently now, or if they look at how they're doing science differently now.
Well, I think in my lab, we always have an appreciation for art because a lot of what we do is done at the end of a paintbrush. So whether we're doing the confocal microscopy or work with our fruit flies, I'm always telling the students the importance of art in science and the beauty of science, what we do and how it can have the very beautiful aspect to it. And I think the students are kind of surprised sometimes about how much we talk about art in the lab. And I think they're very excited to see the show and to see a different perspective on what we do in science and how we can merge that with art.
One of the things I'm really excited about in this show with the work of all of the artists is how this will open the door to science, to people who thought maybe they didn't understand it or it was too complicated. Like the images in the show and the work in the show just really lends itself so well to teaching on so many levels. And that's something that I'm very excited to share with people. So thank you for your insight. So Bonnie and Renee, is there anything else that you would like to add about the collaboration?
It was great. Like, and we Skype and, you know, talk a bit about the art and the work, and then we swap recipes and talk about like preserving, all this kind of stuff. So, but I also have to say, when Renee talked about the science and the beauty of that, she gave me all these microbiology textbooks that she had. And it started a whole new series for me. It's microbiology and viruses. And I've done about 100 pieces of collage just from the work she gave me. And they're incredible, like these little tiny images of different viruses. And so, yeah, so that is awesome, because not just the work for the show, but I've got a whole new series of work that I'm doing, that I've posted online. And I've had a ton of feedback about those, and people asking me, are you going to do like a, you know, prints of them and all this kind of stuff? So it's just, yeah, it keeps giving. I have to say, our connection, artist, scientist, just keeps giving. So.
And I can say the same for myself. We've had amazing conversations over the last year and a bit. And for myself, Bonnie has really encouraged me to get more serious about my art practice. And so the reverse has been true as well. Although I've shared a lot of my science material with Bonnie, and my office is definitely a lot cleaner now. I also have a much messier basement because I've really got into developing my own view of what I do through acrylic pour painting. So that has been a fun aspect that I have been able to work on because of Bonnie's encouragement.
There really are a lot of similarities between artists and scientists in terms of how they work, aren't there?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and we both rely on a lot of times grants to get our work done, right?
Yes, yeah. Yes, not to be overlooked. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd like to thank you both. This has been really wonderful and informative. And I'd like to invite viewers to come to the Buhler Gallery when we're open. Watch our website. We'll tell you when that is, and come in and see this gorgeous work in person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leona.